When this movie initially came out, I was actually really all for it because I had watched the cartoon back in the day and I always thought the Fantastic Four were pretty cool. Not my favorite superhero team of all time, but just the concept was pretty cool. And, because I didn't have an understanding of how licensing worked, I actually kind of expected them to have a crossover with Spider-Man at some point. Because, it was a thing that happened in the comics. One of Spider-Man's biggest things was when he crossed over with the Fantastic Four trying to join up with their team. And while they made dramatic changes to their origin, mostly in that Doctor Doom's powers were kind of shorthand into also being from the same cosmic storm instead of him having like magic and technology and all that. I didn't initially hate it. To this day, I still don't hate it. A lot of people nowadays really hate on this movie because, let's be honest, the Fantastic Four, how they get their popularity in the movie, it honestly comes from them mostly being the cause of a disaster, and a lot of people just tag them as superheroes without them ever really doing anything too heroic initially, which is something I only realized as I got older. It's just like, hey, wait a minute. But I was always just fascinated in seeing them explore their powers. Reed Richards with the ability to stretch his body, Sue Storm with the ability to go invisible, and it wasn't bad that Jessica Alba was smoking hot and played the Invisible Woman, and they had her strip at every possible opportunity. And, when this came out, I was like 14, horny boy. Nowadays, a lot of those stripping scenes just don't, what they're doing, and it feels kind of creepy now. Like, now that I'm fully aware of what they're doing and capable of looking past being a horny teenager, it's just like, stripping scenes are kind of, it's a little too much. It feels like, anime. I'm just looking for an excuse to have this woman stripping down to her skivvies. Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, Captain America. And of course, Johnny Storm was the favorite because he was he was a troublemaker. He was a cool guy, a ladies' man. He just knew how to have fun and he enjoyed having his powers. And Ben Grimm, the Thing. It's clobbering time. Say what you want about the movie, but man, I actually still to this day really love the Thing's look in this movie, because it was a practical effect and it was just like, yeah, it's really there. It was the part of the movie that I honestly loved probably the most, which is the Thing being actually there on screen, realized in the makeup. He's doing the things. He's got the big rocky fingers. To this day, even though it's just like, yeah, it doesn't look the absolute best, but I'm still really taken in by the suit. It really reminds me of the TMNT live action movies with the Jim Henson puppetry. Honestly, if they had Jim Henson puppetry on top of how that suit looked for the Thing, it would have been a masterclass, honestly. And considering the CG abomination you got for the reboots, I'm still very impressed by the way the Thing looks in the Fantastic Four Fox movies, the initial ones anyway. And Doctor Doom was okay. He wasn't as grandiose as he could have been. It would have been better to start off with a villain who was a little bit more campy, all about destroying the city. Doctor Doom is a next level villain, honestly. And the way they worked him in this movie was unfortunate because it's just, they made Doctor Doom the petty, arrogant, self-absorbed person that you kind of know he is, but without the overly grand, pompous gestures and actions and stuff like that. They brought him a little too down to earth, but still kept a lot of his worst personality traits, and that just did not mesh well with what you wanted to see. He just wasn't really that fun of a character. Yeah, it was great to see the Fantastic Four beat his ass, but I mean, they kind of just beat his ass like any other villain, and that was about it. You know, another bad guy to take down. Not like the greatest rival to Reed Richard. And even in terms of Reed's scientific mind and all that, a lot of that really took a back seat in the movie. Whereas if you had it in the MCU, they really would have highlighted Reed's mind a little bit more. Sue probably would have remained the same, especially if it was directed by Josh Whedon. What am I saying? It might have been hit or miss for early Marvel, especially if it hit around phase 2 or so. I really do think if they had gone harder with Dude, really ramped him up to an 11, really had Julian Mahon just chew the scenery even more than he already was in the movie, it really could have been an amazing performance. But they tried too hard to consolidate a character who was so much larger than life, and it ended up kind of falling short of the mark. But I can never say that I hate this movie. I won't say it's a perfect movie, but even in terms of Marvel movies, I'd put it alongside the first Thor movie, about the second Iron Man for me. Like, it's a decent enough movie that can be a fun enough time, and it really was that for the longest time. This thing had a lot of replay value. It's just that once you got what you could get with the Marvel movies, like, yeah, it just lost a lot of popularity because you could do what you could have really got with a little bit more love and care, and that's about it. In hindsight, it just doesn't hold up as well as it used to. But I'll never call it a terrible, terrible movie. I still had fun. And I still have fun. There's still some scenes in this movie that just are a lot of fun to me, and that's never gonna go away. Or maybe that's me just still staring at Jessica Alba's cleavage. Who knows?